Hey guys, welcome back to Crazy Style. On today's episode of the Project 848, we're going to be working on the Immobilizer system and the dreaded Desmo service. In order to figure out if the bike runs, we need to figure out the bypass codes or have a key with the correct key transponder code. This is a tall task. If the dealership quotes $3,000 to solve the issue of having no keys or keycard, what makes me think that I can solve this? Thankfully, people online on forums are awesome and have already figured this out. The 2007 to 2013 Ducati Superbikes use what's called an I2K immobilizer system. From the factory, the dashboards have come pre-programmed with 2 bypass codes and 2 key transponder codes that are bound to the 2 keys that you receive when you buy the bike brand new. In case you lose the keys, Ducati also provided a card called the code card that listed the bypass code as well as the physical key cut code. If you lose the 2 keys, the code card, and forget the bypass code, you are shit out of luck, which I was. Or I suppose I would be if some geniuses hadn't figured out how to crack the system. In order to figure out if the bike even turns on, we can bypass the ignition cylinder by using a pair of wires, or better yet, a toggle switch. By connecting these 2 wires, we can confirm that the battery has charged and that the bike powers on.
To bypass the kill switch, you just need there's 4 wires, you just need the 2 on the right. I forget which wires they are, but just these 2 on the right and right there. Just on a switch right now because I'm waiting for my ignition cylinder to come back. But I just turn it on like that. So that's the service light, Superbike 848 Evo. So we can scroll up with the switch right here, error immobilizer, press down the switch, it'll bring us the code. You just hold down the button until the first number starts flashing. Then you can put in either one of your 2 bypass codes.
Though the bike runs, we cannot turn it over as we have neither the transponder for the antenna, which would be programmed on the keys, nor the immobilizer bypass codes. In order to find what these codes are, we have to interrogate the dash with an CH341A EEPROM chip reader. The EEPROM chip reader can be purchased for around $15 on Amazon. Cracking open the actual dash, we carefully take it apart, taking into account where all of the screws and cables go. On the back of the dash, the security chip labeled 24C16 must be carefully clipped on with the clamp with the EEPROM reader in this configuration. Using some free hex editing software, you can read the content within the security chip. Once you have numbers appear in the hex editing software, you will need to decode it in order to have the bypass codes and transponder codes. Chris W. on the Ducati.community forum helped me a ton by making a great write-up on how to do this and was available when I reached out to him to help me figure out the rest. Using a simple spreadsheet he made, he was able to decipher the given codes and tell me the transponder program code as well as the bypass codes. With the bypass codes, we could finally see if I traded for a bike that actually ran.
Alright, got this wired up, going crazy style. So this bad boy on. Okay, and then I gotta bypass the immobilizer. Just gonna let it do its thing. Immobilizer, okay, down. Here. Okay, I have the immobilizer code in now. Now it's flashing. Definitely not neutral. It's okay. First try. Fuck yeah! Oh yeah, baby. Oh my god.
We confirmed that the bike runs. Awesome. Though we have the bypass codes to start the bike, I did not want to stop there. I don't want to have to input a password every time I want to start my bike. The Ducati I2K system uses T5 style transponders, so I have to be able to find someone to decode the ignition cylinder, cut a new key, and program it. Or I program the key myself. I sent out the ignition cylinder to a locksmith and had blank keys cut that had Virgin T5 chips in them for me to program. In order to program it, I bought a Z-Bull Mini, which allows me to copy transponder codes onto keys.
My Z-Bull Mini. Yeah, so these keys didn't come with the transponder in them, so I had to get the T5 transponders for these keys separately and put them in, which is okay. There's a local locksmith who had them, and it was only about like $5 a piece, so $10 in total. Okay, so gonna take this off the key ring so I don't mess anything up. So let's read and identify to make sure that it reads the T5 transponder. Alright, reading. T5, look at that. Alright, sweet. Okay, let's take this out. Put in the other key and try that. Read and identify. T5, sweet. Okay, awesome. So let us manually program because we do not have any keys to copy. So 10-11, and with the code that we decoded from the Immobilizer or from the ECU, let us program. Alright, sweet. There we go. This one's programmed. So we just gotta put in the second one. Alright, sweet. So these both are programmed, so hopefully they should work on the bike now. So now we have the ignition cylinder plugged in. And we can test this works by first turning it on. So it turns on, but there's lights that come on. The right light is the one that we're worried about. The left one is because the airbox is not in there. But the right one is because it does not read the transponder because the Immobilizer ring isn't around it. So if we press up, air, throttle position sensor. Okay, the stepper motor and the Immobilizer right there. All right. So we can turn it off. Now let's put the Immobilizer ring around it, which is right here. So put it in there and turn the ignition on. Alright, there we go. And now we can see that one of the lights is gone. And if we push up to one of the errors, just TPS. Step and just TPS. See, no Immobilizer. So it worked. We have a functioning, working pair of keys for only like $180, which is awesome.
Now we are on to the Desmo valve service. Firstly, here's some time lapse of me getting to the valves. Now that we confirmed the bike runs, time to do the most difficult and time-consuming service, the Desmo valve service, which includes valve clearances and adjustment, timing belt replacement, spark plug replacement, oil and oil filter change, air filter check, coolant flush, and brake flush. It's important we do the Desmo service before we ride the bike or have it running for a while for a few reasons. Firstly, I don't know when the last Desmo service was done. If the lifters and closers are out of spec, they can touch the piston and destroy the motor. If the belts are old and out of tension, they can snap and also destroy the motor. The motor being destroyed is a lot more expensive than taking the time and resources to do the service. It also gives me a fresh chance to make sure the motor is properly serviced and the mileage is properly recorded for service intervals. Firstly, we should understand what makes a desmodromic valve train different than a normal overhead cam valve train. In a normal overhead cam valve train, the camshaft has lobes that contact the stem of the valve, forcing it open, whether it's the intake or the exhaust valve. In order for the valve to return, the valve relies on a spring to force it closed after the lobe nose has passed it. This valve train has only one shim per valve, as it relied on a spring to close the valve. In the early to mid 1900s, metallurgy was not as advanced as it is today, so springs then would not be able to keep up with the very high revving valve train, leading to valve float. In order to circumvent this issue, the desmodromic valve train was created. The desmodromic valve train uses two lobes per valve, an opener lobe and a closer lobe. The opening lobe is responsible for forcing down the valve so it opens, but instead of a spring returning the valve closed, it uses the second lobe known as the closer lobe to force the valve shut. Because of this, there are two shims per valve, one for the opener and one for the closer. Because the Desmo system relies on an opener and closer lobe, the tolerances are much tighter than a normal valve train, as well as the consequences for not servicing a Desmo valve train are a lot higher. The desmodromic valve train on the Ducati Testastretta Evoluzione tolerances are 0.1 mm to 0.25 mm on the opening, and 0.05 mm to 0.25 mm on the closing, on both the intake cam and exhaust cam for both the vertical and horizontal cylinder.
So I got the heads off, or not the head, but the valve cover on the vertical cylinder off at least. And I got these timing belt covers on. And this is why we do Desmo before we ride it. Because if you look at this, I didn't tune it yet, so I don't know exactly what the tension is. But this seems quite alright. But the vertical or the horizontal cylinder seems very loose. Look at all that play. Alright, now if I'm doing this right, with these cams, this is the closing cam right here. Since these cam lobes are pointed up, we can measure the clearances. So this is the right side of the bike, that's the left side of the bike. I don't know which way they do it, but so the manual I found says 0.05 to 0.25, but people online say 0.1 to 0.25. But we can first see that we're gonna measure the closing lobes right here in between there, and we're gonna try putting 0.25 in there first. And it's not going in there, which is good. It's not going in this one either. Good. So now, switch to 0.1. 1 second. Alright, so now we got 0.1 millimeters. Now we're gonna slide it in there, and it works. It goes in nicely. This one, I'm gonna slide in there. It's a little rough. On the harder side, but it does go in. So I believe that's within spec. And then we can open, so these are the closing cams right here for the Desmo. These are the lobes that open up the valves. So the tolerances should be the same. So we're gonna try 0.25 first, and you gotta kind of weirdly angle it in there, like, give me 1 second. So inside there, you gotta try and get it right on top of there. So 0.25 doesn't go in on that side, and 0.25 does not go in on that side. We can try this side too, just to double check. It does not go in, which is good. So let's try 0.1 from this side, going in. Oh, nice, look at that. Alright, we can double check this side. Just make sure. And it goes in there. Nice. Alright. And then try this one. And it goes in there. Nice. Alright, so we know that the closing cam is in spec. Alright, so now I rotated the crankshaft, so the cams are pointing straight up. This is the opening cams, so it is the same tolerances. So first we shall try the 0.2. Okay, that's not going in there. Okay, that's not going in there either, which is good. Now let's try the 0.1. Okay, that goes in there nicely. This one is being a little bit of a stickler. Okay. Doesn't look like the intake right. Okay, let's try 0.05 on that. Oh wow. Okay, intake right, it does not fit. Even 0.05. So I think that means we need a smaller shim on the closing side. Alright, now let's try the intake. So we'll start with the 0.25 first. Let's go from the front to the side, a little bit easier to get in there. Okay, doesn't want to go in there, which is fine. Okay, neither of them except the 0.25. Now we can switch to the 0.1. Alright, let's try that. Alright, 0.1 goes in. That's good. Just 0.1 going on this side. 0.1 goes in on this side. Okay, so that means that we just need a smaller closing shim on the intake right side. Now we figured out the clearances on the vertical cylinder. We can get to the horizontal cylinder right there. Except the issue is that there's a radiator in the way. So let's drain this out. Thankfully, Ducati has a pretty nifty little bolt right here for the thermostat housing, or the water pump housing. And you can just unthread that. All right. I'm gonna have to two-end this. All right, there we go. Take this out. Ooh. Okay, whatever. Grip it real slowly. Let's open the radiator cap. Go on this side. Just there we go. Oh shit! Oh my god, it's splattering everywhere! So now that we have most of the coolant drained, we can go ahead and take off the radiator. I believe we just take that out and we just slide it out. I believe. So as clear as I was right, you just take out the bolt right here, and then that allows you to slide it off this hanger right here. Turns out we can't do that yet. There's those bolts yet on that side, and there might be one on the other side that we have to take off to get. Let's see. Oh, right here, I think. Actually, No, actually, it looks like it was just that one bolt. Alright, let's do that. Alright, well, now we have the radiator off. I'm just gonna put the fasteners where they were so you don't lose them. Well, now we have the whatever that black plastic piece is called off. So now we have access to the front, the horizontal cylinder head. So we're gonna take the ignition coil out, and then we can pull the spark plug out and look at it. The last one actually didn't look too bad, but we're just gonna take a look at this and clean off all this grease and stuff and check our clearances. Cool trick you can do when you take out the ignition coil and loosen the spark plug in there. Instead of trying to finagle it out with the magnet, you can just put the ignition coil back in, press it in, and then pull out the spark plug with it. It's really nice. Okay, that one definitely looks a bit more gunky. We will be replacing that and doing basically a full Desmo service, including belts and the plug and an oil change and everything like that. Okay, when you're taking the bottom cylinder head bolt out, be careful of the oil that will spill through because it's a horizontal cylinder. But we have all of them out now, so we can open the valve cover and see what we're working with. Let's move this up there. Let's see what we're working with. Okay, it's a little crusty. Valve covers, gasket is not coming with it. Let's just pull this off. 1 second. Alright, well, there we go. Let me just get this breather hose out of the way. Like that. And then I will check the clearances and report back. Okay, so I believe that's the closers are pointing up. This is the right side, that's the left. So let's grab the gauges. Does not go in. Left side also does not go in. Now let's try 0.1 millimeters for the closers. Slides in nicely. Slides in really nicely. Okay. Let's double check 0.2. No. Okay. So now let's check the openers on the closing side. So let's do 0.2 on this side. 0.25. Nothing. 0.25. Nothing. See if we can fit 0.1 in there. Oh yeah, we can. 0.1. Oh yeah, we can. So these are in spec, both the openers and the closers, openers and then closers. So I'm gonna spin the engine, so then the intake side will be in testing position. So now we can see that the closers, the semicircle is touching the closing valve, and the cams for the openers are pointing outwards. So first let's test that these on the intake right side, opener right side, doesn't fit 0.25, also doesn't fit 0.25. Alright, let's test 0.10. Slides in really nicely. Slides in really nicely. So that's on closers. Now let's test the openers. 0.25. I believe that's correct. I'm gonna try coming in from this side. Okay, I'm just gonna stop the video and then test it and report back. Well, we can conclude that both the openers and closers on the intake side, both right and left, and these are all in spec. So the only one outside of spec is the closing intake right. So I double checked the valve clearances actually, and they are all within spec. The opener shims are from 0.1 millimeters to 0.25 millimeters, and the closer shims are actually 0.05 millimeters to 0.25 millimeters. So they're actually all in spec. This is the exhaust cam. This is the intake cam. I know previously I stated that this is the intake cam and that's the exhaust cam. But actually, this is the exhaust cam, this is the intake cam on the horizontal cylinder. But yeah, so what I did is I loosened these tensioners and took the belts off. So then I was able to put these back in their position, or in the neutral position, and take a reading that way. So since these are all in spec, I'm going to put the valve covers back on, and we just need a dab of gasket maker to put on these corners right here to ensure that it does not leak. So I'll go ahead and do that. So now I have the valve covers reinstalled. I just used some gasket maker in those corners where I said, and I have them hand tight right now. So once they dry up, which should take about an hour and a half, I'm gonna come back and retorque these down. And after that, we have to wait for literally everything else for the bike. I don't want to put the airbox back on because it will get in the way of putting the belt covers back on and doing the belts. It's just nice having this space open. But I'm gonna plug these holes real quick while we wait, and then that'll be, I guess, on the next episode or whatever, however I do this.